started when I was 9, which is why I'm 7 years better than Steve at playing the guitar. Yeah, I was 9, I got a guitar. My dad bought it me. It was £9. Sort of acoustic guitar. But we always used to like toy guitars when we was very young. I used to have a toy guitar with Ringo written on it.
You used to fancy
Which
Ringo.
is really,
yeah.
really bizarre. He's not the world's greatest guitar player, but my guitar.
You used to have the hots for Ringo. Yeah.
Yeah. It was the nose.
I think I was about 16 when I started playing guitar, but I played the bass when I was about 11, 12. Window cleaning when I was 13. Part mitzvahs at 15.
We formed on the 16th of October 1989, but we all knew each other before then.
Damon and I sort of got into a band together, which is called the Fanatics, and then Oscar joined the Fanatics with about 6 months before we turned into Ocean Colour Scene. Steve was in another group. So you in a place like Birmingham, you tend to know one another because you play all the same places. So yeah.
I first met him when he chased me down the road and threw flour at me.
Flew a flower at you?
Flew flour, you know, after school. Him and his mates. It was nice.
I beat him up as well, but he won't tell you that.
We signed to an independent label, and that was sort of taken over by Fontana. So the fact that we ended up on Fontana wasn't something that we'd actually gone out and sought, you know what I mean? It's something that happened to us, but I think we was pretty pleased, you know, that we could carry on doing the album. And for the first year, everything was brilliant. We couldn't do anything wrong, you know. And then they didn't like anything that we wrote, and we didn't like them. So we took them to court, or threatened to take them to court, and left on 11 breaches of contract on their part. And which means that everything was paid for by them. So we left without having to pay anything back, any royalty, you know, any costs, etc., and wrote the songs, which then went and sold over 1 million copies of the album. It's ironic because Fontana always used to tell us, we're not releasing an album of yours until you can assure us that it's a top 5. Well, ours was at number 2 for 6 months. So if they'd have trusted us, they'd have had that album.
We met Noel sort of early on before the first album came out. And so we kind of all sort of met each other at the same point. He was like, you know, we all met Paul Weller, which was exciting for us all. It was like, oh, you know, a bit of a gossip there. And I think Noel and Paul really dug Simon's songs and everything, and really dug us as a band because they knew we was, I guess you could say, hardcore in the fact that he was committed and we wouldn't suck the carrot or nothing, you know. So I think people like that did respect that anyway, so as they knew we was a proper band.
Everyone always has this impression that sort of Steve went off with Paul and we sort of said, oh, bye. But it never really happened like that, because then he'd come back for a few months, then go off again, and then I started going off other tours. So it was never ever divisive at all. In fact, it was probably the most exciting thing that had ever happened to us, in a way, you know.
Made us what we are, part of it. Steve being with Paul, and then me playing with Paul, and then these two coming out and supporting.
Damon had to learn like 40 songs in 2 weeks to get the gig.
we learned a lot, and it tested you, you know what I mean? You had to prove yourself and stop being lazy. When we did the first tour, big tour for Melodies, Milton Keynes Sanctuary, right, and it held 2,000 people.
There's 30 people there.
No, I mean, it was rounds, right, and it was just double freaky. We thought, well, they only know Riverboat. And what was the second thing? You've Got It Bad, because the album hadn't come out yet at that point. So, shit. Getting the set list together and thinking, well, they know these two, well, the other 14, they won't have a bloody clue. And it was boss, and the whole tour was great.
One of the best things about selling a lot of records is, apart from the fact that you get a lot of money, is that you can play the sort of gigs that you've always dreamed of playing. Because when you start off a band, when you're a kid, I think your first sort of plan is to play live. You know, it's not to get a record deal. You don't think of it like that. You play live in front of your friends, and you think about the sorts of gigs, you know, that you've seen other people do. And I'd seen, you know, I'd been as the support band going around with Paul doing it and seeing the sort of places that Paul was doing. I thought, that'd be fantastic to do that. And suddenly we were. We were doing the gigs that Paul had been doing, and we were a proper band, you know. And he was right, because that's what you want to do. When you form a band, you want to play in front of as many people as can get in. And that's what we were doing, you know. When you're a young band, you're sort of told to mither and kowtow to the press. You know, it's one of the It's one of the things that you know you have to do, you know, like loading the van yourself. But it's not true, and we proved that. And I don't think they probably enjoy that, but that's an absolute copper-bottom fact, you know. This thing that we're sort of like against the world is nonsense, you know, because most of the world's with us. We're not against the world at all. If we were against the world, we wouldn't have sold as many records, because they'd be against us probably, wouldn't they? Unless we were just against them and they weren't against us, which would be quite unusual, you know. So we're not as damaged or, you know, frail as people imagine the story, because the people who write the story, at the end of the day, they actually prefer to write about their own job, you know. They want to write about being a journalist, really. Well, we don't want to be. I was a journalist and it was crap. I've got Elvis's job now.
When the media was into us, like early 90s, was having front covers, right, and selling 6,000 records. And when we come back with Mosey Charles, got no reviews, or the only reviews we got were unrepeatable on the children's programme, and we sold over 1 million copies. So the media are the same as business. They've got nothing to do with music. If you make a good record, people who like good music will start starting to buy it.
We had enough confidence, enough doubt as well, I guess. I don't know. But you have a belief that gets you through there. We know the songs is bad. We know there's not many bands in the country was as good as us. So what else can you say? You hope that it's going to get through one day. And what I like about it is the fact that the people who go to gigs and people who bought the records proved the fact that it is down into their hands. And I really like the fact that it was down to that, because it wasn't down to the fact that anybody, like people who can guide and judge and everything, like journalists, like media, like anything. Then people went out and bought the record. All of a sudden, everyone was like tails between their legs. Yeah. Oh shit, we still hate them. But hear the joke. Hear the joke. The people who like music, who get their dough out of their pocket as opposed to getting it free from record companies with press releases, they decided that it was in their cupboard for that month or that year. So I'm just like, retro is it's almost a borrowed style of, I guess, if you're on about bands like us, is sort of copying the Beatles. Do you know what I mean? And really, do you know what I mean? We're all like 30 years of bloody age. If you think we're going to sort of sit around trying to do that, you know. In your youth, you try and emulate, I think.
Cooler Shaker or retro? Because theirs is almost an act, you know.
Yeah,
it's almost like you could construct that, you know,
like
for
Lego.
a TV show or something. But our music borrows from the past, and some people call that retro. But we are into our culture, you know, which are our musical
don't
culture.
Borrow from the past, though. I don't believe that. We play guitars. Our music as a band doesn't borrow from the past, man.
You know, it's part of the same lineage. You know, it goes back to the past. Well, of course it does.
Well, I think retro is used in the dirtiest way, as though it's very, very studied.
Yeah.
And my escape from that, right? My only escape from that is the fact that we never went to music college. We never learned, right? We can't read music and we don't do it, so it's got to come from more imagination, I'd say, than study retroism. Whereas every writer, by a pen, has got his grades, whether it be English O-level, A-level, degrees or any shit like that. He has been to a school of his craft. We haven't. Understand me? So, at the end of the day, I'm not having any of that slander from people like that, because they're more studied than us. They're bookworms and they're intellectualising things that they've only read from other people's tongue. And I like to throw it into the wind a bit more, because we just do our thing, do you know what I mean? They're more retro in a way than us. We never went to school, man. They learnt their trade.
We never really thought of, let's make this album sound like this, because I don't think that we can do that, because our albums don't sound like this. They sound like this and this and this and this. They all sound, every album that we've ever done, it's very difficult to say it sounds like that, because you've got songs on it which are so different, you know. So our albums always sound similar because they sound like us playing, but all of our albums sound completely different from track to track. And I mean, I just sit at home and turn a tape machine on and just strum and start humming and moaning away, and sometimes it comes out like a song. But having said that, I've got tapes where if I go back over them, some of the ideas are just dreadful. You know, you can sit down and sing 45 minutes of crap, but at the end of the day, if you got 2 minutes worth, that 2 minutes could change your whole life. You know, like the day we caught the train. I remember writing that. I wrote that when I was living at Steve's flat when he was in Japan with Paul, and I wrote that the same afternoon as I Get Up and Dance, One for the Road. I just sit down and they came out that afternoon, and I didn't know what was happening, you know. I didn't know what would happen with those songs. Some of the songs come out almost as they're recorded, like Fleeting Mind was one like that. I mean, I don't know what that meant. I just sang these words and they sounded really good to me, and the song came out. I just wanted to try and get as near to what poets used to call automatic writing as possible. Because it's easier, you know, it's easier to think like that, I find it, than sitting down and slaving over some script. Sometimes it comes from a riff, like Riverboat, and those are often things that these three do in the sound checks. And we sound check when we're doing a live thing, and it's just sort of turn up your guitar as loud as you can and just play a fast one. And often they you know, I sort of like pick up on that, we work on it until it's a song. But more often than not, I'll bring a song in that I've written, and then they'll make it sound like Ocean Colour Scene. I mean, we toured America in like '92. We weren't new enough, you know, for it to sort of have scared us. Also, we'd supported Oasis, we'd supported Paul, we'd done those sorts of things. We played with Oasis in front of 125,000 people. You know, once you've done that, you're not going to get too scared. We did a gig in front of 85,000 people the other week. Could have done it in lunch hour, so it was easy.
We didn't do that well in America, really. We sort of got banned from everywhere and fell out with record companies. Got done for thieving, and what else happened? It's kind of,
one of our roadies ended up in prison. It was brilliant.
Great.
Absolutely fantastic. 8 weeks with the House of Love on a coach.
And that's
fantastic.
Time we had the record company out there, and it all sort of went pre-time. We arrived in a limo. They picked us up in a limo and sent us home in a cab. How great's that? As if we give a shit. Do you know what I mean? We walk to the station or something. Do you know what I mean? But
hey, you guys are great. As soon as we turn our backs,
then people think that that's where our psyche is, and we'll be going home thinking, oh no, we've missed the $1 billion dream. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, shove it up Macy's windowsill's arse. You know what I mean? I'll pay the cab myself. I'm pleased to get out of there.
It's just a full-on proper title. This is one from the modern, and we are one from the modern, from what's going on, because
we are modern, aren't we? We are modern, and we're not modern.
That's what I thought about the title. One from the modern, in a cheeky way. It reminds me of it's kind of nicely arrogant in a way, because it's almost is one from a day that we haven't seen yet,
yes.
Which is a bit pretentious in a nice way. I like that. It's like, here's one from the modern. It's kind of a bit sci-fi. It's a bit ahead of you or something. Do you know what I mean?
Sort of millennium.
Plus, we managed to blag getting mod in the title, which is ace.
I didn't want that title for ages and ages, because I thought it sounded like a Paul title. Yeah. And it does in a way. But the more I thought about it, it just sounds really good. I think it does anyway.
Yes, so do I.
I think that my song, my lyrics have got better over the years, and I've always been able to write a nice tune, and I just think that I've just simplified them. The songs are more simple now, I think. Even children can learn these songs.
He's written the best songs he's ever written for this album. That's why it's the best song we've done.
It's something a bit humane and honest, I think. That's what I like about the song. And it's a call for arms, and it's very rare you get a true protest song. And that's a hard thing to describe, because there's so many tacky fucking pop singles out. And, you know, Give Peace a Chance was a true thing, to link it to that again, but Profit in Peace is a true protest song, man. That's a positive energy for me to relate around the world. I think everyone will have it.
Yeah, Profit in Peace was something Oscar used to say. It was when there'd be, you know, items on the news, and it was normally about people invading and that sort of thing, and Oscar would say that there's no profit in peace, which is very true. Hence the Vietnam War. But you know, for some reason, as we get to the end of this millennium, it's more important to, you know, to pay for an arms industry than it is to have world peace. That's what's more important to the world agenda, which is crazy.